you for joining the 𝗦𝗵𝗲 show. We are so grateful that, you take the time to join us each and every morning. You take the time because, as they say, 80% is showing up. And you guys, you always come back to listen, learn, and grow. And Rhea and I, we want to always keep inspiring you, to always keep uplifting you in your business and in life. And today, Rhea is going to be taking over the conversation. So get your pen and pad ready so that we can take really great notes what she's about to share. But without she does, I want to introduce myself. My name is 𝗥𝗵𝗲 and welcome to the show.
My name is Rhea.
And welcome to our show. Okay, Rhea, I'm going to pass the mic to you.
Thank you, 𝗥𝗵𝗲. And today's topic is from the book Increase Our Financial IQ by Robert Kiyosaki. And today I will be sharing budget tip number 3, my assets pay for my liabilities. So let me share my screen. All right, so today's topic is budget tip number 3, which is my assets. Who doesn't want that? My assets pay for my liabilities.
That's always good, Rhea.
That is correct. My assets pay for my liabilities. So I have about 11 lessons, 11 takeaway from the book, especially on budget tip number 3, my assets pay for my liabilities. So here are the 13 lessons today. So first lesson was that, Robert's dad, so he calls him in the book poor dad. Why? Because of his financial IQ. But Robert's dad is actually a PhD by profession. But he's referring to the financial IQ of his dad. So that's why he calls it poor dad. But this is his real dad. So his real dad, which he calls poor dad, believes in buying cheap. And letter A, so because his poor dad believes in buying cheap, he thought that being frugal, being a tightwad was the smart budgeting. Second, or letter B, they lived, which is Robert Kiyosaki and his poor dad, they lived in average homes and they lived in average neighborhood. Now, his poor dad loves to save. When there is, so his poor dad, when there is luxury, he waited for the luxury items. He denied himself the luxury of owning these items. And his words are, this is the poor dad, we cannot afford it, which is very common. So let me just go back here because I'm going to contrast it to the rich dad. So this is the poor dad. Now the rich dad, I'm going to put in here, it's actually very tight. This is the rich dad to give a better comparison. The rich dad of Robert Kiyosaki is not his real dad. It was his friend's dad. And his rich dad did not finish college, but he was rich because of his financial IQ. Did not finish college, but he was rich. He has a higher financial IQ. And that's why Robert calls him his rich dad. Now, so his rich dad loves luxury. Okay. His rich dad did not think that being frugal is the smart budgeting. So there is a contrast between the thinking of a poor dad and from the thinking of the rich dad. So the rich dad, he does not think that being frugal is smart budgeting. In fact, the rich dad loves luxury. He doesn't like saving. He doesn't like being cheap. And because he loves luxury, his rich dad lives in a luxury home, and his rich dad lives in a luxury neighborhood. Now, when his rich dad wanted a luxury item, he would say to himself, his words are, how can I afford it? How can I afford it? So that's the contrast between the rich dad and the poor dad. Now, actually, I'm on the 5th lesson already. I just mistakenly labeled them. So the 5th lesson is the way he afforded it. The rich dad afforded it was he created assets in the asset column. And these assets paid for his liability. Now, if we looked at, this is the 6th lesson, the financial statement. Again, the financial statement has income and it has a balance sheet. So this is the income statement of a financial statement. So the income, if you remembered, this is income and this is the expense. And it has to be balanced by a balance sheet. So in your balance sheet, we have assets and we have liabilities. So now what Robert was saying, his rich dad, the way he afforded it, the luxury item was he created assets in the asset column, and these assets would now pay for his liability. So if we look at the income, so in the income and the expense in the income statement and the balance sheet, which has the assets and the liabilities, so the rich dad created assets in the assets column. So assets would be like your apartments. So these assets, when you have a tenant, they are assets. So apartments needs to have tenants to be called assets. Now these assets they create tenant pays for the income. Now, because of the income from the assets, this income would pay the liability. What are the liability of the apartments? The mortgage, the repair, the other expenses such as property tax. So that's all included in the liability, property tax. Now, this liability is being paid from the income of your apartments. Now you have to realize, because this is an asset, all these liabilities are an expense of your apartment, right? They are expense of your apartments. So now these expenses can offset the net operating income, can offset the income, the gross operating income of your assets. So in other words, lesson 7, in other words, Rich Dad acquired assets by paying himself first. Now 8, with the cash flow from the assets. Now, to give you an understanding of what a cash flow is, so if you have apartments, there are income coming from the apartments. Now, you deduct that from the expenses. The expenses, like we said, would be mortgages, taxes, repairs, just to mention a few. So now, income minus expense is your net operating income, or what is also known as NOI. To get to the cash flow, the cash flow of a property, this is the formula. The formula is the net operating income of the property of your apartments minus the debt, what you owe for your mortgages. Now, cash flow again is the net operating income minus the debt. So cash flow is the leftover, right? What you have after paying all your bills, including your debt, including your mortgage. So that's what the book mentioned. It was that with cash flow from the assets, right? With cash flow from the assets, now you have extra other income, which can pay for your liabilities. So I'm in lesson number 9. If Rich Dad wanted to have big luxuries, that means he first has to create big assets. Because why? Assets will pay for his liability. The 10th lesson is what many people do is they buy big luxuries first, and they never have enough to purchase assets. Let me repeat. What many people do is they buy big luxuries first, and they never have enough to purchase assets. Again, this is the 11th lesson. It is a matter of priorities. Which do you prioritize first? Priorities. So then my question to you is, what is my priority number one? Is it increasing income? What is my priority number two? Is it to make a budget surplus? Surplus as an expense, so that I would have the budget surplus, expense. So that means I would have the saving, the tithing, and the investing. If you remember it from the previous topic, deducted out of your expense first. Why? Because this is paying yourself first. You take it out first. So these are the things that I would like you to ask. What is your first priority? Your first priority could be increasing your income. So if you have a job, then look for other ways, side hustle, to increase your income. Never ever forget the first flow. If you have a job, keep it. Don't just quit on it. Why? Because you see others having apartments. You have to remember that they didn't have a lot of apartments. Not until their second flow, which is the apartments, that produce more income, and they're able to let go of their first income. Now, second priority would be creating a budget surplus as an expense. And how do you create budget surplus? By paying ourselves first. The budget surplus would be the saving, tithing, investing as part of our expenses. So to recap on today's topic, which is from the book of 𝗦𝗵𝗲, Increase Our Financial IQ, which is budget tip number 3. And that is, my assets pay for my liabilities. Now, I'll be sharing 11 lessons here today. The first, we have to compare Poor Dad and Rich Dad. Poor Dad is 𝗦𝗵𝗲𝗀's real dad. He's a PhD graduate. He's a professor by profession. He teaches in college, and he became a director of a school. But he calls him Poor Dad because his financial IQ was poor. He had the middle class thinking. Now, 𝗦𝗵𝗲𝗀's rich dad is not his real dad. He's actually his friend's dad. His friend's dad, which is the rich dad, never graduated from college. However, his rich dad had an increased financial IQ, and he invested in a lot of assets, and that's how he became wealthy. Now, going back, rich dad, this is a comparison between rich dad and poor dad. So Robert said his poor dad believed in buying cheap. And this is not the way of the rich dad thinking. The rich dad does not like to buy cheap. Now, his poor dad thought that being frugal was smart budgeting. Now, this is not the thinking of a rich dad. They think that being frugal is not smart budgeting. What rich dad thinks is that by creating assets, these assets would pay for your luxury. So there is no need to be frugal, because why? If you have assets, those assets will pay for your liabilities. Now, to contrast again, the poor dad, Robert and his dad, real dad, lived in an average home. They lived in an average neighborhood. Now, his rich dad, they live in a luxury home. They live in luxury. Now, his poor dad, his real dad, loves to save. The rich dad, he loves to save, but he used that savings, that budget surplus, to invest in more properties. His poor dad, Robert's poor dad, waited for the luxury items, and he denied himself the luxury of owning this, because why? He could never afford it. In fact, his poor dad's words were, we cannot afford it. Whereas if you look at the rich dad's words, was, how can I afford it? So our thinking should be, how can we afford it? When we buy properties, there will always come a time that we're gonna run short of money. So our thinking would be, oh, we cannot afford it. We should be thinking, how can I afford this next purchase of property? Now, the fifth lesson, the way that the rich dad afforded was he created assets in the asset column. And these assets in the assets column paid for his liability. Now, this is how it looks like in a financial statement. Like I said, financial statement has the income statement and it has the balance sheet. Now, the income statement has your income and it has your expense. The balance sheet has your assets and has your liabilities. Now, if we remember, the rich dad created assets that would pay for liabilities. So, for example, in this situation, apartments. When you have apartments, there are tenants that pays you. So these tenants, your apartments are now assets, which then creates the income. So your tenants pay you income. Now this income will pay the liabilities of those apartments. What are they? The mortgage, the repair, the expenses, such as the property tax, just to name a few. Now, these expenses, these liabilities they are expenses. They are tax deductions from your gross operating income of your apartments. Why? Because your apartments, you're a business. So the expenses that are used for maintaining your apartments are now expenses, and that will reduce your gross operating income. So the seventh lesson is, in other words, rich dad acquired assets by paying himself first. Eighth lesson, with cash flow from the assets, such as the apartments, this would pay for his liabilities. Now, to further define cash flow means several different things. Before we get into cash flow, we have to know the gross operating income, the net operating income. So let's get the formula for the net operating income. So when we have income from the apartments, they are considered gross operating income. And we do have expenses that we need to subtract for maintaining these apartments, such as the mortgage, the taxes, and the repairs. So what's left over, the sum of that income minus expense, is what is called NOI, or the net operating income. Now, to get to the cash flow, the formula is the net operating income minus the debt. This is what we owe to the bank. This is our mortgage. So cash flow is the leftover of the income after all the expenses, the repairs, the capital expenditures, the taxes are paid off, and after the debt is paid off. So that's what cash flow means. So now if you have cash flow remaining from your assets, from your apartments, now you can use that to buy your liabilities, whatever you like. It could be luxury vacations, your car, but it's coming from your assets. Now, lesson number 9. if rich dad wanted big luxuries, he first has to create big assets. Lesson number 10, what many people do, and this is true for me in the beginning when I did not have financial IQ, is I would buy big luxuries first. My big luxury at that time was travel, buying a nice car, a brand new car, or a brand new TV. And I would never have enough to purchase assets until I changed my thinking, until I learned more about personal growth, where I invested in myself. I read more books such as Increasing Our Financial IQ. So this is very important. What many people do is buy luxuries first and never have enough to pay or purchase assets. So again, it is a matter of our priorities. So my question to you is, what is your priority? What is your first priority? In my case, my first priority is increasing income. So what did I do? I delayed gratification. What did I delay? Delay buying those luxury items, either new car or new TV or traveling. I increased more income by buying more assets and then delaying those other luxury items. Now, because I have a lot of assets, I have a lot of apartments, my assets now pay for my liabilities. The second priority for you, my question is, are you making budget surplus as an expense? If you go over our previous topics, previous videos, you will understand what creating budget surplus and expense is. And to just name a few, creating budget surplus and expense, this would involve having, saving, tithing, investing, taken out from your expense right away, where you pay yourself first so that you have money for either from saving to invest in assets. So those are my lessons learned. Let me know in the comment section below what you learned, and stay tuned for more Ria and Alka show.
Ria, thank you for sharing. That was quite amazing. And guys, I hope you took tons of notes. Ria, you talked about paying yourself first, and you mentioned this at the last conversation. Paying yourself first is so important because oftentimes people think, okay, well, why do I need to pay myself first? I need to pay other people, but it's important. So can you just explain that again? Why is it important that we need to pay ourselves first?
Yes, that is correct. Because why? So let me tell you that you're going to come up short if you pay yourself first. I guarantee it, because that's what happened to me. I came up short. So what that means, my expenses, whether paying my mortgages, having luxury vacation, paying for that brand new car, or paying for that brand new TV, my expenses were greater than my income. So if we pay ourselves first, we take out the saving, the tithing, the investing as part of the expense. We pay ourselves first. So what happens, you will be shocked. You will be amazed at the end when you review your financial statement. Oh boy, I do not have any more income to pay for my other expenses. It could be the luxury item that you bought. It could be the vacation. How can I pay that luxury vacation now? Because I took out that budget surplus early on. You took it out as an expense. Now you'll say, oh my God, how can I afford that restaurant bill when I'm short of money? So now, guys, you are shocked that you don't have any money left over. And so what would that make you do? You're going to scratch your head and say, how can I afford all these things? So what I did was I delayed the gratification of having those luxury items. And if I did, I had to, number 2, was create more income. So by paying ourselves first, by putting the saving, by putting the tithing, by putting the investing money as an expense and keeping them away, you will realize that it is not enough. There's not enough money that you're creating. You cannot just rely on your W-2. You need to have some side hustle. And the best time to start is right now, because who else would better take care of you? The government will never take care of us.
They talk about that you need to Yes, to have more income coming. People during this time are laid off. Like, there's no guarantee. You show up at work, and the next day your boss tells you you are, you're sacked, you have to quit, and they let you go. So where is the security? You need to have that security blanket. Also, what came to mind was to developing on your skill set. What skills do you have? If you are, an example, a graphic designer, go back to night school, go back to college. I mean, everything's opened up. So you can go back to school, study as a graphic designer, or if you are a carpenter, you'll love to work with your hands. You have that skill set right there. So go back to school, get the education, because the solution during this time is education. How are you developing your mind, right? How are you developing your mind so that you gain this skill set? So this is very important, because you've got to develop on your skills. And this way, you and your family at least have a stability of life, and you're having more income coming in.
What I would also recommend, aside from getting the education, is to start doing it. If you know you are great with something, for example, carpentry,
do it.
Start a side hustle now. So we are online, okay? So there is no need for you to have a brick and mortar. Go advertise, promote that you are a great carpenter. Share it on Facebook, share it in social media, be known, because other people from other places can know you, and if they love it, they can buy from you directly. Exactly. You do not have to have that brick and mortar. Be everywhere, and online is the best way to be everywhere.
Online, because everyone is, we are online, and that is the best way, is to just maybe like have, what you can do is to have maybe say like a group of people, and just gather, say like 5-6 people, do like a market research. What do you think? This is what I'm thinking of doing. This is what I'm good at. These are my strengths. And you know what? Work on your strengths. There's no better feeling than knowing that you have your strengths, because everyone has strengths, everyone has weaknesses, but we want to really highlight, okay, what is our strengths? What can I work with today? And having people, so do market research, gather maybe like 5 of your best friends, and tell them, hey, you know what, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm thinking of doing, what do you think? And your friends, if they're good friends, they will give you the feedback. They will say, yeah, you know what, you're so amazing at this, you should really go out and do this. So really,
what I can say though is there will always be naysayers. So I say, go ahead.
Naysays is always going to be there. Absolutely, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Naysays will always come in, and they will always give you your 5 cents. But the key is, what we're saying is, just go out, do it. And you know what, as Nike says, just do it, because you don't know what you don't know, right? You don't know unless you give it a try. If you fail, that's okay. But you know what?
That's not a failure, right?
Yeah, right. But if you fail fast, fail hard. I believe in this. Fail fast, fail hard, but get back up on the trenches and just do it, because your failure, the learning is in the failures, because we all made mistakes. We and I made mistakes. Yeah, we made mistakes all the time, every day. But the key is we learn from the mistakes and we tweak on those mistakes. I'm always tweaking. Okay, what did I do? Where did I go wrong? What mistake did I make? Show me, tell me, where did I go wrong? And by doing this, by having other people's opinions, okay, tell me, show me, where did I go wrong? And I do this every day. It doesn't matter who you are, younger, older, show me, tell me, where did I go wrong? Because it's the learning. I want to learn. Where did I go wrong? Where did I fail if I failed? So your learning is in the failures. Your learning is in the mistakes that you make along the way. And this is what's so powerful. So what we want to share with you today is just go out there, just go and do what whatever your strengths are, work on your strengths, because those are your assets. Because right now, with high inflation, interest rates, earnings going down, how do we live a stable life? And a stable life, people are starving. People don't know where the next meal is coming from, as saddened as that is. And so the only way you and your family are going to have a stable life right now is to have the flow of income, is to have that security blanket, that you are out there hustling, you are out there and working on your skills, because your skills is what's going to get you when we do come out of the recession at some point in time. We will. But now is the time, is to build on that. Is to build on that.
I would like to share a quote from one of my mentors, 𝗔𝗹𝗸, and he beautifully said it. If we work hard on our job will give us the day-to-day living. However, if we work hard on ourselves, we will create a fortune.
Yeah, I love that. We will create. Exactly. We will create. So that's a huge difference. We will create, as opposed to the job will create for you. You will go out there and create that work. You will go out there and create what you desire. You will go out there and create what is yours. So Ria, I absolutely love this, because you know what? Talking about your budget, talking about what is really important, you know, it's just, you know, a life-changing when we learn how to implement on the budget. How do we budgetize when it's needed? So I really appreciate this, Ria, for sharing. And guys, I hope you got great knowledge from what Ria shared today, and I hope you took tons of notes, because I sure did. And I hope that you really took great nuggets from what Ria shared. So we've come to the end of another amazing show, but we will see you the same time, same place, come tomorrow morning. So go out and take action, because knowledge without implementation is just knowledge. But when you implement on knowledge, this is power. So we want you to just go out there, do what we've just told you, take those actionable steps that is required for you and your family to live a stable life. So we will see you come tomorrow morning, same time, same place. Thank you always for joining us, for listening, learning, and growing each and every time. So make the rest of the day the best